Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Today, we're cracking a code that's hidden in plain sight.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
It's the code of names. We're diving into global naming trends and using data from a fascinating source,
Okay, what's the source?
Wikipedia's list of most popular given names. Get this. Some names rule the world, and some are tucked away in specific spots on the globe. We're going to uncover those trends and maybe even spark some ideas.
For baby names.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Or, for that secret agent alias you've been working on.
You know me too well.
But really, names are like these little time capsules. They tell us about history, culture, even personal identity.
Totally. It's like each name carries a story, a little piece of where it came from.
Okay, so first impressions of this Wikipedia list. I'm blown away by how different things are from one country to the next.
Right. It's amazing.
Like Muhammad, for example, top name in many Muslim-majority countries, but not so much in secular Europe, so is that a global thing?
It's definitely a pattern you see. Big time. Think about names like Muhammad or even Maria, huge in Catholic areas.
Yeah, makes sense.
It shows how religion and tradition shape what we name our kids. Those names are like windows into a region's history. It's social fabric, you know?
It's mind-blowing. It's like each name is a mini history lesson. But then you have names that seem to ignore borders. I noticed Liam in the top 10 for a bunch of Western countries. Why is that?
It's probably a few things mixed together. Sometimes it's just how a name sounds, right? The phonetics.
Oh yeah, like it just rolls off the tongue.
Exactly. Other times it's about the meaning behind a name or maybe a famous person who had that name. Like think about Sophia.
Pretty name.
Right. And it's way up there in the rankings in all sorts of countries. Argentina, Mexico, Bulgaria.
Really diverse places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it might be because people link that name with elegance and strength.
So we've got these global names, but then there are others that are super specific to one region. Like in Japan, you see names like Aoi and Haruto that feel very tied to Japanese culture.
Japan is a great example. They weave cultural details into their naming traditions.
Tell me more.
Well, traditional Japanese names are often inspired by nature. So Ai, for example, means hollyhock.
Pretty.
Right. It's a flower that symbolizes gentleness and beauty in Japanese culture. And then Haruto has the word haru in it.
Which means
Spring. It represents new beginnings and growth.
it's almost poetic, like giving a child a piece of nature's beauty through their name. But this makes me wonder, with such strong cultural traditions, can new trendy names even pop up? Are we seeing that anywhere?
Oh, for sure. Tradition's a big deal, but we're seeing fresh, trendy names too, especially in societies that are changing quickly.
So places that are modernizing.
Yeah. It could reflect shifting values, like a move toward being unique or embracing new ideas. Like you can trace how a culture is changing just by watching how baby names shift.
That's wild. So we've got Liam, the global superstar, culturally rooted names like Aoi, and these up-and-coming trendy names all in the mix. That's a lot to process. Where should we go from here?
Well, we've done the global overview, but let's zoom in a bit. The Americas are a fascinating mix, right? North America, particularly the US and Canada, they seem to like short, modern-sounding names.
Like Liam, Noah, Olivia.
You got it. Those names are everywhere.
But what about South America? Same deal.
South America is a whole different story, way more diverse.
I bet.
You see some crossover, like Santiago is pretty common in a few countries, probably because of Spanish colonialism and the Catholic influence.
Ah, makes sense.
But each nation has its own unique patterns. Brazil, for example, leans towards names like Miguel and Helena.
So they're blending their Portuguese roots with modern influences.
Exactly. It's like each country has its own sound when it comes to names, a mix of its past and its present.
I'm dying to know what's up in Europe. It's got such a layered history and culture. I bet there are some cool naming traditions there.
Europe is like a giant mosaic of naming conventions, shaped by centuries of history, languages mixing, you name it. You got those classics that never go out of style, like Sophia and Alexander.
Timeless.
But then you also have names specific to certain regions, like Oisin in Ireland, which points back to their Gaelic heritage.
It's like a name can teleport you to a specific time and place. Are there any big trends across different European countries, though? Any common threads?
We do see patterns. Biblical names like David and Maria are still big in many European countries. Shows how Christianity still has a strong influence.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But then you have unique names like Markel in Spain's Basque country. It highlights their distinct culture and language.
Okay, so we've explored the Americas, Europe, Asia's next. It's such a massive and diverse continent. I can only imagine the range of names.
Asia is like a naming gold mine. Each country, each region has its own set of traditions and influences.
Yeah.
Like in India, names like Muhammad, Hridayan, and Aditi are popular.
And those reflects.
The country's incredible religious and cultural tapestry. It's a blend of so many different things.
It's really striking how names act as a bridge between the past and the present. They carry cultural weight, historical significance, family ties.
It's like a thread connecting generations.
You nailed it. Names are more than just labels. They're powerful symbols of identity, belonging, and heritage. Okay, so Americas, Europe, Asia. That leaves us with Africa. It's known for its rich history and diverse cultures. How does that show up in their naming traditions?
Africa's a fascinating mix. You see names reflecting religious influence, cultural heritage, and even historical events.
Wow, all in one name.
For example, Muhammad is consistently a top name in North African countries.
Hmm.
But then you have a name like Emmanuel popping up in Haiti, showing this blend of Christian and African traditions. It really proves that names can tell really complex stories.
It's like each name holds a little piece of a culture's soul, showing its values, history, and even its hopes for the future. Okay, final destination, Oceania. What's waiting for us there?
Oceania is this unique mix of traditional names with Polynesian roots and then modern influences.
A real cultural blend.
Yeah. In French Polynesia, for example, you have names like Manea and Kiana. Yeah. Right. And then in Australia, you see familiar names like Oliver and Charlotte, alongside indigenous names like Ariki.
It's amazing how this data lets us peek into the cultural makeup of each region. What a trip we've been on. We've circled the globe, uncovering the popular names and the cool stories they tell. But we've been looking at the big picture. Maybe it's time to get a little more personal.
Yeah, the global view is awesome, but let's get up close and personal.
Yeah.
Think about your own name for a second.
Okay, I'm game.
What's its story? What does it tell you about your family, your culture, or even like who you are as a person?
I love that. We've been looking at names from way up high, and now we're zooming in on something super personal. It's like using a magnifying glass on our own identities.
You got it. Those global trends give us the big picture, but it's the individual stories that really grab you.
Okay, I'm already thinking about my own name and wondering where it came from. Is it rooted in my family's past? Does it have some secret meaning I never knew about? This deep dive is making me want to do some research.
That's what's so cool about all this. It makes you curious. It makes you want to uncover the hidden layers in your own name. Maybe you'll find a family connection you never knew about or learn something new about your background.
Okay, I'm ready to jump back into the data, but with this new personal angle. We've talked about how religion and tradition play a role, but I'm also curious about language. Do different languages shape how names work? It seems like they would.
Totally. The sounds and structure of a language totally influence what kinds of names become popular.
Give me an example.
Okay, so in Romance languages, like Spanish, Italian, and French, and by the way, Romance languages just means they evolved from Latin. You often see names that end in vowels.
Right.
It creates this softer, more melodic sound.
I see what you mean. It's like those names have a built-in romantic vibe. Sophia, Isabella, Matteo, they all have that flowy, vowel-heavy feel.
Exactly. And then you've got Germanic languages like German and English.
Yeah.
They tend to like consonant endings, so the names sound more clipped, more assertive, like William, Elizabeth, and Liam.
That's so interesting. It's almost like the sound of a name can reflect the personality of a language. Romantic, flowing names, strong, consonant-heavy names. It's like a whole spectrum of sound.
I like that. It's true. The sounds and rhythms of a language are baked into our cultures, and that shows up in how we name things, too. It's not a coincidence that certain sounds appeal to certain cultures.
This makes me think about all the different names we've seen on this list. From the flowing syllables of Muhammad to the sharp consonants of Markle, it's like a global symphony of names, each with its own melody.
I love that analogy. It really captures the diversity and musicality of names around the world.
Okay, another question popped into my head. What about the meanings of names? Some cultures put a lot of emphasis on what a name means, like they're giving the child certain qualities or a destiny through their name.
Oh, absolutely. In lots of cultures, the meaning of a name is huge. It often reflects the hopes and values parents have for their kid, or even their dreams for the child's future.
Can you give me an example?
For sure. Like in many African cultures, Names are chosen to reflect the circumstances of a child's birth, their personality traits, or even the hopes and dreams parents have for them.
That's intense. It's like giving a child a path in life through their name. I bet there are some amazing stories behind the meanings of names around the world. I'm already curious about what my own name might mean.
I totally recommend diving into the etymology of your own name. You might be surprised by the history and symbolism it holds. It's like finding buried treasure.
Adding that to my to-do list for sure. This deep dive has sparked a whole new level of curiosity about names. It's amazing how much we can learn about ourselves and the world around us just by paying attention to the names we give and the names we carry.
That's what makes this so rewarding. It's a journey of discovery, not just about names, but about culture, history, and the whole human experience.
Okay, I'm ready for another round of name exploration. What other interesting things have you found in this data? What's really stood out to you?
One thing that's really struck me is how names can reflect the changes happening in a society. As cultures evolve, their naming practices change too. It's almost like you can track cultural trends just by watching how baby names change over time.
Whoa, really? Can you give me an example? I'm having a hard time picturing it.
Absolutely. In many Western countries, we've seen a drop in the popularity of traditional biblical names. At the same time, more unique, nature-inspired names are becoming more popular. This could show a wider shift toward individualism and a desire to connect with the natural world.
That's fascinating. So as society changes, the names we choose for our kids change too. It's like names are a mirror reflecting our changing values and what we think is important.
Exactly. Names are like cultural barometers. They show us the beliefs, aspirations, and trends of a particular time and place. They tell us where we've been and where we might be going.
This makes me think about how pop culture influences names too. Like, I bet in a few years we'll see a surge in Arius thanks to that super popular TV show.
Probably right. Pop culture, especially movies, TV, and music, has a big impact on naming trends. We see it all the time.
It's incredible how names can be shaped by so many different things. Religion, language, culture, history, and even entertainment. It's like this complex web of influences affecting the names we choose for ourselves and our children.
And that web is always changing. As societies evolve, their naming practices change too, creating this dynamic and fascinating world of names.
Okay, we've talked about religion, language, culture, and pop culture. But are there any other things that shape these trends? What else are we missing?
One thing that's often overlooked is personal preference. Cultural influences and trends are important, but ultimately picking a name is a super personal decision. It's often about individual taste, family history, or just a gut feeling.
That makes total sense. It's a mix of those big cultural trends we've been talking about and personal preferences that are unique to each person or family.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole exploration so intriguing. It's finding that balance between recognizing those powerful cultural and historical forces while also realizing that individual choice plays a role in shaping naming destinies.
So it's not just about following the trends or doing what's always been done. It's about finding a name that feels right, a name that connects with who we are or who we want to be. It's a deeply personal way to express ourselves.
Well said. A name isn't just a label. It's an expression of identity, a link to our values, and a connection to our past, present, and future.
Okay, I'm ready for another round of global name exploration. Where to next? What other parts of the world are calling to you?
Let's switch gears and head over to the Arab world. The data here gives us some fascinating insights into how tradition, religion, and modern life all mix together to shape naming conventions.
I'm all ears. I've always loved the beauty and significance of Arabic names. Tell me more.
In the Arab world, names like Muhammad, Abdullah, and Maryam have deep religious meaning. They reflect how important Islam is in the region's culture and history.
So these names are more than just popular. They have this profound spiritual connection. They're tied to faith and identity in a really powerful way.
Exactly. They're woven into a sense of belonging, faith, and cultural heritage.
I bet these names have been popular for centuries, passed down through families, holding on to those important values and traditions.
You're right, they have a long and rich history. But we're also seeing some new trends in the Arab world, showing how modern influences and changing tastes are playing a part.
Oh, really? Like what kind of modern names are becoming popular?
Well, while those traditional names are still popular, more and more parents are choosing modern-sounding names, often with a global feel. Names like Lynn, Lian, and Mila are gaining traction.
So it's like a blend of old and new, a fusion of ancient traditions and modern thinking. That's so interesting.
Exactly. And this mix isn't just in names. You see it in many parts of Arab culture today. It's a society that honors its rich past while also embracing the energy of the modern world.
It's cool to see how these global trends play out in different places, each with its own cultural twist. It's like the same ingredients can be used to make totally different dishes.
What a perfect way to put it. It reminds us that while there are these universal trends in how we name things, the way those trends are embraced and adapted is different all over the world.
Okay, I'm ready for another deep dive into a specific region. Where should we explore next? What other fascinating cultural landscapes are out there?
Let's go east to South Korea. This tech-savvy nation is a great example of how modernization and globalization are changing naming conventions.
Ooh, this sounds cool. South Korea is known for being at the forefront of technology and culture. What kinds of trends are we seeing there?
One big trend is a move away from traditional names that are specific to a generation and towards more modern names that are gender neutral. It's a really interesting reflection of how social dynamics are changing in South Korea.
Interesting. Can you give us some examples of these modern gender-neutral names that are becoming popular?
Sure. Names like Seojun, Hajun, and Chian are at the top of the charts these days. They're replacing more traditional names that used to be everywhere.
So that's like a whole new generation of names is coming up, names that reflect South Korea's fast modernization and how it's becoming more connected to the rest of the world. They have a very modern, sleek sound to them.
Exactly. These names have a contemporary feel, almost like they're mirroring the country's advanced technology and global influence. It's like the names themselves are embracing the future.
It's a cool reflection of South Korea's vibrant cultural landscape, a place where ancient traditions meet modern innovations.
You got it. And this blend is evident not just in names, but in many aspects of South Korean society today. It's a country that's evolving quickly while still respecting its rich cultural heritage.
It reminds us that names aren't stuck in the past. They're always evolving, reflecting the social, cultural, and technological changes happening in our world.
Nicely put. And that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating. It lets us see the dynamic interplay between tradition and innovation, what's local and what's global, the past, present, and future, all reflected in the names we give and the names we have.
Wow, I'm already feeling inspired to learn more about names from all over the world. It's like opening a window into different cultures and getting a glimpse of their hearts and souls.
And we're just scratching the surface. There's a whole lot more to discover in this amazing world of names.
My brain is buzzing. So many cool insights about names. I never realized how much we could learn about different cultures just by looking at how they name people. Names hold so much power, don't they?
And we've barely scratched the surface. This Wikipedia list is incredible. I feel like we could talk about this for hours.
Seriously, I'm already thinking about all the names we haven't even gotten to yet. Any other regional trends or unexpected findings you'd like to share before we wrap up? Anything else that's caught your eye?
One area I find super interesting is Eastern Europe. It's like this meeting point for different cultures, and that shows up in their naming traditions. You see bits of history, language, even mythology all mixed into their names.
Ooh, tell me more. What makes Eastern European names so unique? I'm picturing castles and like that swirling folk music. What kind of names fit that vibe?
A lot of Eastern European names have Slavic roots. They often take inspiration from nature, myths, or important figures from history. For example, names like Zofia in Poland, Victoria in Bulgaria, and Luka in Croatia are all Slavic, showing this shared cultural background.
So those names carry this sense of history and tradition, linking people back to their roots. It's like each name is a link in this long chain stretching way back in time.
That's it exactly. And what's really cool is how Eastern European naming conventions have been influenced by other cultures throughout history. You see traces of Byzantine, Ottoman, and even Germanic influences all mixed in. It's this fascinating blend.
Whoa, so it's like a melting pot of naming traditions. It reflects the region's crazy history. I'm getting the travel bug. This makes me want to visit Eastern Europe and hear all those beautiful names in person.
I'm sure you'd hear some amazing names, each one with its own story, telling you something about the region's history, its different cultures, and its fascinating languages. It would be a trip worth taking.
Okay, so we've explored the Arab world, South Korea, and Eastern Europe. Any other hidden treasures you want to share before we finish up?
One last thing I'd like to point out is this growing trend of parents picking names that are unique or unconventional. More and more people are moving away from traditional names and going for something original.
Oh, yeah, I've noticed that. It's like there's a shift happening. People are moving away from fitting in and towards celebrating what makes them different.
Exactly. Traditional names still have their place, but there's this increasing desire to express yourself. And that shows up in the names parents are picking for their kids. They want names that stand out, names that show off their child's unique personality.
It's like a subtle rebellion against the idea of being ordinary. People are embracing what makes them different and showing it through their names.
I like that. It's about embracing originality and celebrating how diverse everything is, both in names and in life itself.
Well said. Speaking of individuality and expressing yourself, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. We've explored so much global naming trends, regional differences, cultural influences, and those personal connections that make this topic so captivating.
It's been an awesome journey. We dove into the world of names and saw how they connect us to our past, present, and future. Amazing to think something as simple as a name can hold so much meaning.
I feel so inspired. I'm totally going to research the origins of my own name and the names of my family and friends. Can't wait to uncover those hidden stories.
You should. It's fascinating. As you think about your own name, consider what it means, its history, and what it might reveal about you and your place in the world.
Perfect way to end our deep dive. It reminds us that names are so much more than just labels. They're these powerful symbols of identity, heritage, and where we belong.
They really are. So as we wrap up, we'll leave you with a final question to ponder. What does your name say about you?
That's a great question to think about. Thanks for joining us on this awesome journey through the world of names. It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring those names.